What's up, Canes fans? This is D Money with the CanesInSight podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Jacked up, just got out of practice. It was a phenomenal display. Got a lot to talk about, a lot of exciting youngsters to talk about, huge plays, a lot of fireworks. But first, I want to tell you about our friends at Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you've been in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Call 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733. These guys are experts. They will guide you through the whole process. They have experts in each step of the process, investigators, doctors, medical experts, you name it. They will do their very best and use their years of experience and insane resources to get you what you deserve. Best of all, they don't get paid until you get paid. Take back control of your life. Anajar and Levine. Also want to say what's up to our friends at Caneswear, Brett and everybody. It's such a friendly environment. If you go down to Davie, Florida, Arrowhead Plaza, stop at the store. It's like football heaven. You can also go to caneswear.com if you're not from around here. You don't want to make the trip. Tons of stuff available for Miami Hurricanes, Miami Heat, Dolphins, Marlins, Panthers, Inter Miami, you name it. I got this cool Hurricane baseball shirt there. It is great. Fits me great. Makes me look better than I do. So shout out to Brett for everything that you do. And go to caneswear.com. All right. So got a lot to talk about here. I've not been this juiced over some shells practices in a while. I get hyped on Green Tree, but this was really a display. It was open to this. The one-on-one segment of practice was open to the media, so you probably heard a lot about it already. I'll give you my thoughts from being there. But man, like and subscribe to this podcast before I get going. I keep forgetting to say that. Pete's been reminding me, like and subscribe. We're doing daily shows every single day, Monday through Friday, plus instant reactions. We are dropping podcasts, trying to take it to a new level of content. Like and subscribe. Come along for the ride. Exclusive practice information. So getting to it. The one-on-one drills, you had some of the most spectacular plays I've seen. And listen, I'm going to give you some context. Obviously, I get excited on Green Tree. Everybody knows that I like to hype up what I see at practice because it's exciting to see the Canes, especially when they're doing well, even if their opponent is the Canes. But I've been going to practices since I was, 1991. There's pictures of me with, Jesse Armstead, Michael Barrow, Dexter Siegler, me and my boy Filete wearing jerseys that don't fit us. So this 30-something years. I think the catch that Xavier Restrepo made today over Meach Powell, the Washington transfer, was probably the best catch I can remember seeing on Green Tree. I'm talking about the ball was overthrown and thrown outside on a go. Restrepo had Powell on his hip, and he fades out. No one in the world thought he was going to get this ball. No one thought he was going to get a hand on it. It just mentally, you were not expecting that. Then he's able to fade out, contort to the ball, full speed, and then make a one-handed catch with Powell not only covering him well, but interfering at the end of the play. Brings it in for the touchdown. One of the best plays I've ever seen in my life. Let's listen to Xavier Restrepo talk about that play.
For sure. Mish had great defense. Nothing better he could do. It was just an absolute dime by Cam. Do it in the air and let me do what I do best, catch the ball.
All right, so that was not the only play. Obviously, that's a veteran play, but there was it seemed like every single play, there was something spectacular happen. I'm describing the one-on-one sessions, and just for those who weren't there, you basically had the court. This was one session at a time. Sometimes they were on two at a time. This was one at a time, and you had quarterbacks doing about 4 throws in a row, wide receiver against the DB, and then they switch. And what makes it unique is that you have 4 quarterbacks. Judd Anderson didn't participate in this drill. But you have 4 quarterbacks that can really throw. You got Cam Ward, who threw the pass to Restrepo, which was a dime, where only Restrepo could catch it. You have Reese Poffenbarger, who made some nice throws and showed off his arm strength. Jakari Brown, who made a very nice throw to JoJo Trader. And then also Emory Williams in that mix. So these are guys that can play, that have played real football, started real games. So we haven't had that depth at quarterback in a while. We haven't had that top end with Cam Ward in a while. So I think that's contributing to some of the spectacular plays in this drill in particular. But you also have an infusion of young talent, and that begins with JoJo Trader and Nye Carr. JoJo Trader was smooth as silk. Again, we've been talking about his coordination and his route running. He's also faster than I thought. I think he's getting physically better as he gets in the program, proper weight training, proper nutrition. I think his physical potential is being maximized here, and you're seeing those stats. He's always been super coordinated and smooth, but he left Daryl Porter in the dust. And look, I know some people are going to hear this and say, yeah, of course Miami's receivers had a big day. Miami's thin at corner, and they don't have Damari Brown, who's injured right now. On top of Robert Stafford, who's also injured right now. Nothing serious. That's true. But JoJo Trader went against Daryl Porter, who was one of the better cover corners in the ACC last year. We saw him. He didn't get thrown out a lot and absolutely cooked him. I mean, made it look easy, just like he does. He doesn't look like he's exerting high effort, but he left him in the dust. A little bit of change of speeds with him. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he is faster than I thought. He's pretty fast, but his change of speeds is outstanding. His ability to change gears without being deliberate, and he left Porter in the dust. Caught an easy touchdown from Ja'Cory Brown. Also had another one, I believe it was against, might have been against Demetrius Freeney, where he just dusted him. Easy touchdown. Nye Carr continues to make plays. All he does is get open and make plays. It doesn't look as pretty as it does with Trader, but is very, very consistent. And this goes back to high school. Carr put up huge numbers against great competition. That ability to produce, I think, is underrated when it comes to wide receivers. And Carr had that, and he's taken it to practice and continuing to produce in practice. Obviously, next step will be the ACC. But he had a touchdown, jumping over Jadis Richard and making a contested grab for 6. So an unbelievable day for both of those two freshmen. They continue to flash. Also, Robbie Washington showing off his acceleration and speed, last year's star receiver, along with Ray Joseph. So the two guys we signed this year and the two guys we signed last year that are here right now, Ray Joseph and Robbie Washington, both shined in this particular drill, making a lot of big plays. And by the way, Dawson after the practice had some words on his young receivers, particularly JoJo Trader and Nye Carr. So P, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, I mean, they can run, and their body control is what you think. Now, like everything, whenever you're new, you're not playing instinctive like you can play until you start learning things in a way that everything becomes second nature. But their skill set is where you want them to be.
One thing that's interesting that I'm seeing, and I'm not going to give away schematic stuff. They're not showing that much anyways to give away. But personnel-wise, one thing that's interesting is you have a lot of guys with different skill sets to play the nickel / strong side linebacker position. Last year, you saw Corey Couch pretty much have a stranglehold on that position. What you're seeing now is you have a lot more guys that are safety corner hybrids or linebacker safety hybrids who can do a little bit of both. So Mish Powell from Washington, the transfer, he played safety for Washington last year. Started off as a corner, started off as a walk-on corner, ended up being a starting corner, then became a starting safety. Coverage is his thing, and he's been playing a lot of nickel over the slot with that coverage ability. So that's interesting, having a guy like that with that ability that can do some of those things from a coverage standpoint. Also, Dylan Day, who's further down the depth chart, but he's somebody who is really a combination of a corner and a safety, and has the ability to play that role. That's not necessarily a true safety, not necessarily a true corner, has more run support than a corner, probably has more man cover skills than your average safety. So you're seeing some of those guys get in the mix at that position. You also have linebackers who are really more like safeties with the way they can run. We talked about Cam Pruitt last show. He's getting a lot of reps for a true freshman and generating a lot of buzz. Bobby Washington, who was a star of last spring, super talented, freak show 4.4 speed, somebody who's very, very gifted and just trying to keep it together. He is somebody who is getting reps at that strong side spot that really has the speed of a safety. Really, it's the speed of a corner, to be honest. You also have Caleb Spencer, who's sort of that tweener safety linebacker, getting opportunities in that role. So one thing that I find interesting is that particular position and the ability, the versatility of a lot of guys on this roster to fit in there, whether there's more on the coverage side, like a Powell or a Day, or more on the run support, physicality side, like a Washington or a Spencer. So that's something to watch. Just, schematically, I wouldn't tell you how it looks, and I wouldn't even know how it looks because Gidger's going to keep everybody guessing. He does so much, but the ability to have those kind of versatile pieces, that gives him the chance to be even more creative than just, okay, Takari Couch, we know what he is. He's kind of your classic nickel corner. Guy who's really impressing me. Listen, there's no shells, right? Or sorry, there's no pads. It's just shells. There's not full contact anything. When it comes to linemen, it's very tricky because it's not, banging bodies. It's not the real physicality of college football. However, somebody who's really caught my attention is Jared Harrison Hunt, the 6th-year senior out of Brooklyn, New York. You don't see a lot of 6-year seniors, especially guys that have played as much as Hunt. The COVID year obviously made things unique, but I'm glad he came back. And I know Miami's glad he came back because this is a guy who was a basketball player in high school, really didn't start playing until his junior year and was sort of raw at that point, blew up as a senior. Miami came in and took it from Penn State. But he's always been a little behind body type wise because he's a basketball player. He had a thinner build, even though he has some natural strength to him. He always had athletic ability. He was always making plays in the backfield, but that consistency that you can rely on in the trenches, you didn't necessarily see it with him. Last year, I thought he had a better year than the more touted Leonard Taylor. They stood him up a lot. So he was playing a stand-up role despite being a D tackle when he was more than athletic enough to pull that off. Has nice natural power to him, natural pop, and has experience. So now as a 6th-year player, he has a mustache. He's an old man. He's a grown man on top of the athletic ability that he's always had. So he's making a lot of plays. Every time you see the quarterback running around, you see Jared Harrison Hunt in the mix. He is somebody that I think could be a breakout player if he stays healthy because he has the ability and now he has the age, maturity, physical and mental maturity to really put it together and have an outstanding year in this Lance Gidry defense. So Jared Harrison Hunt is someone that I'm watching closely. 2 other guys, going back to the freshmen, that continue to open eyes, Elijah Lofton and Chris Wheatley-Humphrey. Now, these guys generated a lot of controversy on the CanesInSight forums. By the way, if you're not on the CanesInsight.com forums, if you just listen to the podcast and don't go on the boards, you're missing out. Sign up for the CanesInsight.com forums. We got about 6.7 million posts and counting. It is the most active Hurricane community on the internet by far. It makes Twitter look like, the Wall Street Journal or something like that. This is so fast and consistent and new and fresh. You want to be on the CanesInsight.com forums for the absolute latest. If something happens, it's on there immediately. Anyways, a lot of spirited debate on those forums. 2 guys who generated a lot of debate were Elijah Lofton and Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, probably because of their dimensions. Elijah Lofton is not the 6'6" long tight end that like a Riley Williams is, for example, the prototype. He's 6'1" tops, right? Then you have Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, who's 5'10", probably 5'9" in high school and skinny. Now your prototype running back. But both of those guys were extremely good, productive football players. You look at their senior stats. Wheatley-Humphrey was averaging about 16 yards a carry, I think, as a junior and a senior. Elijah Lofton scored touchdowns running, receiving. He got a sack on defense. He returned a kick for a touchdown. I think he threw one too. Great blocker. So these are guys that were total football players. Chris Wheatley-Humphrey came to our camp and got an interception for a touchdown as a cornerback. So these are football playing dudes with exceptional quickness and just natural football movements despite their size. Lofton, focusing on him, we talked about him a little bit on the last practice pod. The size, not vertically, but horizontally. This is a big, heavy dude, strong, definitely built like a big fullback. And you haven't even seen that yet because the pads haven't fully been on. What you've seen with him is his route running. This guy splits out wide quite a bit against good competition. And he is tough for safeties to handle right now. He's a very polished receiver. So very impressed with what he's brought to the table. And I think we're going to see more of him as the pads come on and the physicality starts to come out. This is a weight room beast. And then Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, we've talked about him consistently on this podcast. He really reminds me a lot of Duke Johnson. I'm not saying he's as good as Duke Johnson. He's not going to be Miami's all-time leading runner. At least that'll be highly unlikely. Duke probably had him on the stiff arm and a little more physicality. But man, the ability to just the vision and then the jump, the jumping, cutting ability, the life in his feet, for lack of a better term. Duke could jump from gap to gap naturally without lumbering because he just had that spring in his feet. You see that with Hellcat. He's made a couple moves in practice that have had the coaches going crazy. And again, probably bigger than I thought. He'll be he's not going to be a franchise type back like a every down 220-pound back, but he'll be big enough to play college football and make an impact if he continues to do the right things. So excited about those two youngsters. There were also some future Canes around on campus for the practice. One guy we talked about after in our Under Armour recap, Floyd Boucard, the defensive tackle from Central by way of Mobile, Alabama, by way of Canada. This is a guy that we spotlighted early. I think Pete tweeted about him after his first drill at the Under Armour camp on Sunday. We saw it right with our two eyes. This guy moved different than Myron Charles, moved different than any defensive tackle that was in attendance. Got a slew of offers after that camp. I believe Miami will offer him while he's on campus today. I don't know if he's posted that yet, but that's my expectation that he will get an offer. We'll see. But this dude is incredible talent. We saw him at the camp. I saw him in person today. He has width and defensive tackle type frame, 6'2" and change, and very athletic. He seemed to be having a great time. He was being given the royal treatment. Another guy that was on campus, Dia Bell, the son of Raja Bell, longtime NBA player. He is the quarterback in American Heritage. I thought he was the best quarterback at the camp on Sunday, 2026 prospect. He was there with his dad. I think he was the first one to arrive, Gabby Aridia reported. This dude is very impressive to me. I love basketball players. I love multi-sport QBs. Dia Bell is one of those. And he was also getting the royal treatment. There with his father, who's a little bit taller than him. Dia Bell looked young to my eyes, which tells me that he probably still has an inch or two of growth if he's on his father's track, because his father's a little bigger. And again, Dia Bell's not like one of these guys that looks 30. He looks like a kid. So could be more growth to come from him, and he's already big enough to play quarterback in Miami. Another name, if you want to talk about feeling old, Aldarius Johnson Jr., who I believe is class of 26. He was there, tall kid. His dad was there with him. You might remember his dad from the Northwestern class of 2008. Glue hands. Makes you feel old to see his son out there already making plays. And he was tall. He looked athletic, and obviously looked to have some interest in the Canes. So that's the report from camp. We're gonna keep it coming every single day. What day is it today? Wednesday. We'll be there on Thursday. We'll be there on Friday. And if something happens on Saturday, you'll see us on Saturday. We're keeping it rolling. This is a new era of CanesInSight. We are dropping content. If you've been on the site, you're seeing stories every day. You're seeing stories of the podcast that we're cutting. You're seeing media from the podcast. You're seeing interviews. We have a lot of recruit interviews that we've already cut that are going to be dropping periodically throughout the week and continue to come throughout the season. Brad Tejeda and Pete are doing a great job with those on YouTube as well, but we'll have them in written form. We're going to have player interviews, a lot to talk about there, but current player interviews, we'll tell you more about that when we can, but we're going to have a lot of Canes themselves, present Canes on the show, which is going to be new and different. A lot of X's and O's content like you saw yesterday. If you haven't checked that out, check out the Air Raid podcast called Football School with Coach Mike Zuckerman, 10-year college vet, most recently a linebacker coach at Utah State, talking about the air raid and what it really means and how Miami fits in with what they do. Really, really cool stuff. Learned a ton and got great feedback. If you haven't checked that out, listen to that podcast, watch that podcast, or read the article on CanesInsight.com. Really got a lot of great feedback on that one. And we're going to keep that kind of stuff coming. A combination of recruiting. I don't think we need to tell you, if you listen to this podcast, you're getting the best recruiting info first. Names that you hear for the first time from us end up being in the class. At least that's how it's been. We expect that to continue. We expect to amp up the content on the team, daily podcasts, more interviews than we've ever had, and more baseball content, more basketball coverage, and just some more tricks up our sleeve that you'll be finding out about. So sign up for the forums, CanesInsight.com. Sign up for the socials, CanesInsight and Instagram. Check us on Twitter and a whole lot more. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
I got one thing to add here. We have Floyd Boucard. We have not put this interview out yet. We have a quote from him about Miami at the Under Armour camp.
Let's listen in.
Contact with them or any interest?
Yes, sir. Actually, the coaches, it's like a big family. It's basically like we could go over there whenever we want. It's like crib. So I feel like by the end of the season, I should get an offer from them.
So there you have it. I think Miami is showing a lot of interest. I don't think Boucard's going to have to wait too long for his offer based on the treatment he got at the practice. It could be, by the time you're listening to this, he could have already been offered. We'll keep track of that recruitment from beginning to end, and you're going to get the absolute latest at CanesInsight.com. Again, sign up to the forums. It is addictive, the amount of information you get in a short period of time. And if you're more of a podcast guy, just tune in every day. We'll be on visual and on all podcast platforms, brought to you by Anna Jar and Levine. It's going to be a heck of a year, a fun off season. Going to be a lot of recruiting news to report with Cristobal, and then a big season coming up with Cam Ward leading the charge. And based on what I've seen in the last 2 practices, I think Miami fans are going to be very, very happy with number 1 under center. So until tomorrow, go Canes.